Okay, we'll start with this. Michaela Mayer explains why she signed with Jake Paul after 9 years with Bob Arum's Top Rank, despite the influx of high-profile female fighters crossing over to Jake Paul's MVP. The acquisition of Michaela Mayer still felt like a surprise, not because of MVP's interests. After all, signing the number 3 ranked pound-for-pound boxer on the planet further reinforces the upstart promotion's commitment to developing women's boxing. Rather, the surprise stems from Mayer's exit from Top Rank. Mayer became synonymous with Bob Arum's company during the fruitful 9-year partnership that saw the U.S. Olympian win world titles at Super Feather, Welter, and Super Welter. She was the first woman to sign with the flagship American promoter in almost 2 decades and opened the door for many great female fighters to follow in her footsteps. An extension with Top Rank was placed on the table, but as Mayer, 35, enters the twilight of her career, a move to MVP felt like a necessity. There is no bad blood between me and Top Rank. My contract was up, Mayer told Talk Sport. Usually as a champion, they would have automatically got a 1-year extension, but they were still in limbo with the TV deal, which gave me the right to look elsewhere. The biggest deciding factor with signing with MVP started about a year ago, before the second Sandy Ryan fight, when we tried to make a fight with one of their fighters, and they weren't willing to work with me unless I was signed with them. Over the next year, they signed all these girls, and I thought, if I don't sign with them, I'm gonna get frozen out. They are really cornering the market, and I'm not mad at it because they are doing an amazing job. I view Michaela's move to MVP as somewhat of an eventuality, and that's irrespective of Top Rank's broadcast situation the last 7 months. That whether they had a broadcaster or they didn't, this was always the move for Michaela to make. I'm in the last leg of my career, and I've always wanted the biggest fights possible, so the last thing I wanted to do was get into a contract where I don't have access to the biggest and best fights. So that was the deciding factor, said the 3-weight world champion. On top of that, they also have someone like Jake Paul, who's really new age and has a totally different way of promoting. Then I heard they were signing the deal with ESPN, they have the Netflix opportunity, and they're signing with Sky Sports, so the business mind in me told me there was nowhere else to go. MVP has 18 active female world champions on its books. The most significant of those from Mayer's perspective is bitter rival Alicia Baumgardner, who handed the Los Angeles technician her first defeat in the paid ranks back in 2022. The fans deserve the rematch with Baumgardner, Mayer added. What was the first thing I said here on the channel when news broke that Michaela was going over there? That this is going to place added pressure on Alicia Baumgardner to either have a rematch with Michaela or a showdown with Carolyn. That the girls that she's fighting, for a lot of people, they simply will not suffice. Michaela continued, it's been a long time, and there was a lot of money that was left on the table by not doing that rematch. I don't know if she wants it. MVP did say that it might be a difficult fight to make, and in my mind, that means she doesn't want the fight. But we will see. I can fight from 140 to 160, so there's a lot of good fights out there for me. Believe it or not, having a rival in the sport of boxing is actually a gift because it gives you a fight to sell, not just one fight, but in some instances, a rematch, in others, a rubber match. And the boxers don't always see that, the forest through the trees. Mayer is expected to return to the ring sometime in August, with MVP eyeing a massive fight for her promotional debut. I've heard what they want is for Chantel Cameron to come up and fight me for my WBO title at 147, Mayer continued. She must mean come down, not up, because Chantel is about to make her junior middleweight debut after boxing for Michaela's old title at 154. Having no plans on staying there, she would presumably then move down to fight Michaela at 147. I've always welcomed a fight with Chantel. I think that would be great. It could happen at 147 or 154. For me, if I have to wait until August to fight, I would love to face Lauren Price because she's fighting in April and would be available by then. But if they can get me Lauren Price for August, I would love that. And then we can throw either Chantel or Clarissa Shields in there at the end of the year.
That Shields fight ain't gonna happen.
But Michaela does have other options, at least 3 other high-profile options in Chantel Cameron, Lauren Price, a rematch with Alicia. As stated, Irrespective of what Top Rank's broadcast situation has been the last 7 months, stable or otherwise, this was always the best move for Michaela to make. Staying at Top Rank, it would have been difficult for them to bring girls over to their side of things to fight Michaela when, in all likelihood, MVP's offering more money. So instead of trying to bring them to you, you go to them. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy! And super flyweight news, Jesse Bam Rodriguez is set to fight for world title at a new weight class. Jesse Bam Rodriguez, 23-0 with 16 KOs, is a two-weight unified world champion and pound-for-pound star. Signed with Matchroom Boxing, Bam has looked to cut above the rest at Superfly. His aggressive, heavy-hitting style has captured the imagination of boxing fans and is placed well in the top 10 of Ring Magazine's rankings. Comes in at number 5 on mine. On the Ring IQ pound-for-pound list, Bam Rodriguez has entered into the top 5. High-level fighters Juan Francisco Estrada, Sonny Edwards, and Fernando Martinez have all been dominated by the man from Texas. A move up in weight to bantam seems to be in the works for Bam, but what will that ensue? 118 pounds has 3 world champions currently: Christian Medina, Jose Salas Reyes, and Antonio Vargas. A fighter of Bam's caliber will be confident of unifying this division. First reported by Julius Julianus on X, it is believed that Antonio Vargas will be the first opponent for the 26-year-old southpaw. The mega fight at the lower weights is at Super Bantam.
What fight is that?
Undisputed Super Bantamweight star Naoya Inoue will fight Japanese rival Junto Nakatanyi in Tokyo this May. A future fight with the winner is what will provide Rodriguez with the recognition both fiscally and commercially that he desires. They didn't mention the 4th champion at 118, Takuma Inoue, Naoya's brother. That is the biggest fight you can hope to make at 118 pounds for Bam, provided he starts a campaign there. It would also set the stage for Bam to take on both Inoue brothers, provided he beats the younger one. There's been loose talk of yo-yoing in weight for Bam Rodriguez, that he can make a brief appearance at 118, then drop back down for the winner of Willibaldo Garcia versus Jason Maloney, to fight for undisputed at Superfly, then move back up. Move up, then down, then back up. And I don't know how much I can believe that Bam is going to yo-yo in weight like that, but if he is to move up and face a champion straight away, whether it's Vargas or Medina at 118, that may be enough for Bam to move past Devin Haney and claim the number 4 spot. I believe that Bam already has a better resume in terms of names than Devin Haney. He's already surpassed him in terms of champion scalps, champions he's beaten and taken belts from. That if he goes up to 118 and beats another, that creates a strong enough argument for him to move past Devin. The only thing that Devin has done, that Bam hasn't done, was fight for undisputed. But Devin Haney's undisputed run, not being the strongest, really only being comprised of one fighter in George Kambosos. That's it. Just doesn't create the strongest of arguments for Devin to stay ranked ahead of Bam. Of course, Devin could always have that fight with Rolly Romero. Yeah, Rolly is a champion at welterweight, isn't he? We'll see what happens, though momentarily, it looks like Bam is set to gain ground on Devin Haney if he can become a champion at a 3rd weight and beat even more champions than Devin already has. Elsewhere in the world of boxing, former champion Regis Prograis views the Conor Benn fight as the alley-oop from God. The 2-time 140-pound world champion will face Benn in a 10-round, 150-pound catchweight bout in the co-main event of Tyson Fury versus Arslanbek Makhmudov on April 11th at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Netflix. In Benn, Prograis believes it's the perfect chance for him to cement himself again. I've been a world champion 2 times already, Prograis said during Inside the Ring on Monday. Benn has never been a champion, and to be honest, he might never become a champion. I don't see it for him. He's an okay fighter, but that's all. I think this fight is like an alley-oop from God. God just threw it up for me. Addressing what Regis Prograis said, what's the likelihood of Conor Benn, now that he's with Zuffa, becoming a world champion? Before news broke of Conor Benn going over there was all this chatter about Conor Benn potentially moving down and facing the winner of Ryan Garcia versus Mario Barrios that we now know turned out to be Ryan Garcia, that Conor would fight him for the green and gold title. What is the likelihood of that happening now that he's with Zuffa? How do we know they don't just have him fight for the Zuffa belt? Ryan Garcia's immediate future seems to involve a rematch with his old buddy Devin Haney that may go down later on this year, ruling out the potentiality of a Conor Benn fight, at least for the not-so-distant future. So now that Conor's with Zuffa, beyond this Prograis fight, what is he gonna do? Prograis got back into the winners column in August when he beat former world champion Joseph Diaz by UD. The Southpaw from New Orleans, Louisiana, was coming off consecutive UD defeats to three-weight world champion Devin Haney and Jack Catterall. Damn, that was all the way back there in August? It's been that long. Now, Prograis, 37, has fought exclusively at junior welter since 2015. Benn will move back down after consecutive middleweight bouts against Chris Eubank Jr. after losing the first fight, which was the Ring's 2025 Fight of the Year last April by UD. Benn avenged the defeat, dropping Eubank twice in the final round in a one-sided points win on November 15th. Benn, 29, of Essex, UK, last fought at 150 pounds when he beat Peter Dobson by UD in February of 2024. While Conor Benn has yet to fight for or win a world title, he's established himself as one of boxing's top names. With what the Englishman represents, Prograis eventually became hell-bent on making the fight regardless of the sacrifices he's making by moving up 10 pounds. He hopes to make up for that discrepancy with all of his experience. Because while Conor Benn is bigger and younger, he's also a lot less experienced than Regis Prograis, who has been a champion 2 times at 140 pounds. I don't know how much that's going to matter, though, the night of. At first I was asking about the weight and stuff like that, and I think they passed on us, Prograis said. I told my manager, man, go get that fight, please. Don't worry about the weight. I asked about what the weight was going to be, and if we've got to do a rehydration clause, and they said no. No weight, no rehydration clause. I said, well, I don't know, because I definitely want to go to 147. We took a date and said, I don't care, make the fight. I know I can beat Conor Benn. Just secure the fight, no matter what. On that predication for Regis Prograis, Conor Benn would present like a steak dinner. Maybe a seafood boil, because Regis is from Louisiana. Here you got a guy just fought at 160, dropping down to 150, so he may be depleted the night of, which may sap his punch resistance. At the same time, there's no evidence of Conor being a world-level fighter, not even with his big win over Chris Eubank Jr. that only evened the score. And was Chris ever a world-level fighter? That being a question, Conor Benn doesn't give us the answer, so it's very obvious why Regis would jump at the opportunity to fight a naturally bigger, younger fighter that going into the fight is going into it with some handicaps. If nothing else, Regis does have experience over him. And you have to figure that because it's the co-main event to a fight happening on Netflix, Regis is making a big score. Certainly more than he made losing to Jack Catterall and scraping by Jojo Diaz. It's a steak dinner. The caveat is, in that Diaz fight that Regis barely won, he was dealing with a naturally smaller guy who had been moving up in weight several weight classes, a guy who hurt Regis Prograis several times in that fight. That fight was a lot more competitive than it should have been, and it was against a style that normally Regis can dominate.
He's a boxer puncher.
Jojo Diaz is a pressure fighter, always has been, and Jojo Diaz gave him a lot of problems. A very weathered, war-torn, naturally smaller Jojo Diaz gave Regis Prograis all he could handle, and the best that Regis could do in that situation at 37 was win a decision.
That ain't good.
Now, I don't know if that's because Jojo Diaz is really just that tough, or if Regis Prograis is really just that shot. Could be a bit of both. Neither of which is all that encouraging ahead of a fight with a bigger, younger fighter at a higher weight where Regis is not campaigned in his mid to late 30s. It may look like a steak dinner to Regis, but in all actuality, could be food poisoning. It might. The silver lining for Regis, win or lose, is that he stands to make a big score from this fight in what are the twilight years of his career, as he is approaching the end. He only has but so many fights left in him. And fighting on Netflix in the co-main event of Fury versus Makhmudov, surely it's got to be paying him something substantial for the risk that he is now taking on. Conor Benn is reported to be making an estimated $15 million for what is this layup, this tune-up fight, en route to something presumably bigger. Better. Because I don't imagine they'd be kicking out that kind of money to use the guy just once. I think his stay at Zuffa will last a few fights, maybe even a few years. The relationship with Matchroom is now fractured, so he doesn't have them to go back to. It's a little bit hard to peg Conor Benn's style, because he doesn't come from some deep amateur background, some Olympic pedigree. He's not a Team GB alternate. He's a Nepo baby. And stylistically, he's definitely an action guy. Has the look, the makings of a pressure fighter, except that in his last fight, he was moving more and using his jab more, being wild less. Setting up his punches behind his lead instead of just jumping in like he did in the first fight, controlling his emotions more. All that nervous energy. Looks like he actually had something semblant of a plan in the rematch as opposed to what we saw in the first fight, that he's becoming more of a boxer. So even if in previous instances, Conor Benn's had the look of a pressure guy, I'm not sure that's what shows up the night of the Prograis fight. Conor wins. That's how I've got it. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that Regis Prograis, because of his experience, he's biting off more than he can chew here. He barely made it past Jojo Diaz. He barely scraped by him, that now I think he might get stopped. I think he might get knocked out, because he got knocked down by Jack Catterall, who's not the strongest of punchers, and that happened 2 times in their fight. His knees buckled. He got rattled several times in the Jojo Diaz fight. Another guy who's really not the biggest of punchers and isn't known for power, isn't known for knockouts, that if Conor Benn lands on this guy like they did, might be all she wrote for the aging former champion. What happens after that for Conor Benn on the Zuffa side of things, I really don't know. I could see a situation where they have him fight for the inaugural Zuffa welterweight title. The original plan was to guide Conor Benn to the green and gold title, thus him being ranked at number 1 with the WBC was no accident. But now that he's with Zuffa, and now that Ryan's all busy with what could be a Devin Haney rematch, that door looks closed, sparking some change in the trajectory of Conor Benn's immediate future. I could see the Zuffa welterweight title being part of that not-so-distant future. They would have paid out a lot of money to bring familiar faces over to their side of things to legitimize what's supposed to be their world title. Like what they did with Jai Opetaia at Cruiser, they may end up doing with Conor Benn at Welter. But I don't know that having Conor Benn hold your version of a world title will fully legitimize it in the eyes of what are his critics.
He's got a lot of them.